Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming out this evening. I'm Ted Winterer. I'm a 16-year resident of Santa Monica. I rented for my first 8 years and now own a home in Ocean Park where I live with my daughter and my 2 children aged 7 and 2. I'm a Recreation and Parks Commissioner. I'm president of the Ocean Park Association and an advisor to the Coalition for a Livable City. And if I'm elected to council, my priorities would be preserving Santa Monica's beach town scale and character for our next generation. Protecting our existing affordable housing by adopting land use policies which would discourage LSAC evictions of long-time residents of Santa Monica. We need to not only continue to increase our funding for public schools, not only continuing our funding for our public schools, but look at ways to increase it. I think we need to start reining in the growth of our government, which has doubled in size in the last 12 years, and make it more responsive to the people. And we need to make our city the most sustainable city in the U.S. bar none. We've pick the low-hanging fruit of sustainability. We need to go after the tough stuff like the airport pollution, cleaning the water around the pier, adding bike lanes, and addressing our greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, we need to find creative ways in a built-out city to add more open space.
Thanks, Ted.
Well, I think Susan made a good point about we have to turn this government around and make it more responsive to the people. And my feelings are that the people on this dais who belong to me be most interested in listening to people and understand the concerns would be the incumbent Bobby Schreiber and Susan Hartley and the incumbent Ken Genzer, so I would like to serve with that. To me, the issue on rent control is the fact that for every affordable housing unit we've created in the city in recent years, we've lost a comparable number to LSAC evictions. So I think we really need to pursue land use policies which preserve our existing older housing stock and disincentivize tearing them down and creating market rate condos, because we lose so many of our valuable residents who've been here for a long time. Well, I agree with what's been said. If I'm approached by someone handling me, I try to look in the eye and treat them with the same courtesy and dignity I know that other people treat me with. I carry around the phone numbers for the Police Homeless Liaison Program and Chrysalis and other social service providers, and I try to make the judgment of whether the individual in question is someone who can be helped through these programs, and in that case I offer to make a phone call and steer them towards those programs, but there are some instances where somebody is clearly in dire need of immediate help, and I'll offer to buy them food and if really necessary give them some money. If there's a way to do it so that tenants aren't harassed and unjustly evicted, yes. I am really going to vote in favor of Prop T as I'm co-author of it. I am going to vote in favor of SM because I believe the city ought to be raising revenue through sustainable means rather than through new development. I've been in favor of Prop AA, the college bond measure, but I've talked to a lot of people out there who feel this uncertain economic times it's too much to ask to tax them. So I'm going to waffle on that one at this point because I'm still weighing it over. And of course, I'm in favor of the county proposition to increase our sales tax to fund mass transit.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we need to preserve the current character and scale of Main Street. That's what all the residents I spoke to in Ocean Park believe. So not only do I favor not allowing any buildings over the existing heights, but I think we need to create what would be known as either a conservation overlay district or a historic district or something like that to make sure that the buildings which might individually not qualify for landmark status are preserved based on their contributing nature to the overall feel of Main Street.
Thanks, John. Ted?
Well, I think there are two solutions to this issue. The first is one which Mayor Katz alluded to, which is creation of more smaller parking districts in our, to serve commercial buildings. I should note that in 1984, the general plan back then called for creation of parking districts on Lincoln Boulevard. South of the freeway, we still don't have them, so we can't just plan for these things, we need to act. But we need to create more parking for along commercial boulevards farther away from the residences. And then as I support the preferential parking, I live in preferential parking, but the circulation element does call for possibly pricing it differently. So if you have 3 cars, you pay more for the 3rd car. I have one neighbor where I live who's had 2 cars, single woman, and she's taking park away from us, so they need to tweak the system so we reduce some of our dependence. Well, I tend to just throw Bobby a bone and agree with him. But I can't do that. Well, as I mentioned, we need those small commercial parking districts on the south end of Lincoln to enable us to redevelop the shallow lots we have there, which cannot provide enough parking on their own, those auto repair facilities. So we provide parking for the whole district, then you can redevelop those lots to 2 or 3 stories of manageable scale. We need to beautify that street, make it more pedestrian friendly. I am opposed to what's called for in the loose to redevelop the Albertsons Mall site into a large multi-story facility. You should look at the pictures in the loose strategy framework that shows this big building with about 3 cars going down Lincoln Boulevard.
Thanks, Ed. John?
Yes.
Ed?
We passed Proposition V 2 years ago to tax ourselves to create funds to clean up the bay. And there is a plan in place to first address the water around the pier. Unfortunately, that plan is not going to effect until, it will not be completed until after the 100th anniversary of the pier next summer. And I think some of the council members, city council members, are aware that we need to move that along more expeditiously.
It has been.
And they need to hear from us that we'd like that project to move along so that the water around the pier is cleaned up by next summer.
Ted?
Yes. I received one check the other day from a developer who was in the audience, but I haven't spoken to him about it yet, but I'm going to return it because I wouldn't want, since it's a project pending before the city, I wouldn't want to be tainted in any way by having received money from him. I understand some people believe that you aren't necessarily influenced by receiving that money, but I just would like to make sure I was not. That was a long question. Yeah. What I feel about the impact on small businesses on Proposition T is that it will actually assist those small businesses, because anytime you take, for instance, take Busy Bee, which is endorsed, Busy Bee Hardware on Santa Monica Boulevard, which is endorsed Proposition T. They recognize that they don't have a lot of cash flow, that they probably every month struggle to make payroll and pay up and make a small profit. And if that site is redeveloped, they will have 2 options. They can try to find someplace else in Santa Monica to rent, which will be a challenge, or essentially they can go out of business because that site will take at least a year, if not 2, to redevelop. When it is redeveloped, the developer will have to recoup his capital investments and construction costs by increasing the rental in the existing space. So I think that Proposition T actually supports small businesses, because you can even refer to the city's own Opportunity and Challenges report of the loose revisions, and there's text in there that says redevelopment hurts small businesses.
Thank you.
I think that's a dangerous trap. I think it's tempting to say we could give high school kids parking in that Civic Center garage right now because it's largely underutilized, but since the plan on the very near term is to use those spaces for both when the downtown lots, parking structures are renovated, and ultimately when the surface lot that's Civic Center is converted to a public open space, that lot will be used. And so we started letting high school students use that now, and when they couldn't use it anymore, we'd have a problem on our hands. I feel strongly that kids that go to high school should be able to walk or take the bus. We shouldn't be facilitating every one of these kids having their own car and driving to and from school. I don't think many of us grew up driving to school, unless you lived way out in the countryside someplace where you live in an urban environment like Santa Monica. There are other ways for kids to get to school than to drive.
Thank you.
I was thinking when I was up here tonight that I've been seeing a lot of all these people lately, and starting off back in July when we went in and pulled our papers and at various candidate forums, and city TV tapings, etc. They're all great people. I must be beginning to suffer from Stockholm syndrome because I'm going to miss them when the campaign's over. I think they're all great citizens of Santa Monica. I can tell you it's a significant endeavor to run for city council, and they're all worthy of being elected. That said, if you're like me, I hope you'll learn a little bit about my positions tonight. I hope you take the time to visit my website, which is tedforcouncil.com. I think that I would provide new leadership and a new era in this city. We have a lot of challenges facing us, and I promise always to be accessible to you and always listen to you, and I urge you to vote for me on November 4th, if not sooner.
Thank you, Ted.